Hi, I'm Robin.
And I'm Bill.
Welcome to Not the Retirement Show. Today we're chatting about finding yourself in not retirement, I guess we should say. So here's the thing. A lot of people retire, and it doesn't matter whether they have had a big career, whether they've been a homemaker, whether they have just had a pretty simple, easy job. They think they know what life's going to be like. And they wake up one morning, maybe the next day, maybe 6 months down the road, and all of a sudden they're really disillusioned.
Yeah, I think I think there are various stages of pre-retirement and retirement, and there's the looking forward to retirement phase. There's the early stages, the first few months perhaps of retirement.
The honeymoon phase.
Well, the honeymoon phase, and I do think it is months. I don't think it's necessarily years. It could be, but I think it's more like months. Where there's this sort of newfound freedom. I'm free at last, which is fine. You're not going to play golf, 8 days a week or something like that, which is wonderful. But that kind of disappears after a while. But you're talking about finding yourself. I don't think you find yourself in the first few months of retirement. I think you find yourself much later. It could be a year later. It could be 2 years. It could be 5 years later. But I think there is, a period of time where, as you say, called the honeymoon phase, where the euphoria is really good. It feels great. You're not going to work, commuting, doing this and the next thing, and it feels great. But then reality kicks in.
And I agree with you, but I have a but. And my but is, maybe up to this point, we've really all thought about this, that, okay, there's one transition into a new kind of life. And some people have even written books about this, and they call it your second act or your second career, whatever. But I am beginning to feel that this is a phase. It's like a cycle, and we need to go through it over and over again as we continue through life. Why would I say that? Well, Bill, your very first second act involved buying a Vespa. And if you're a longtime listener to our videos and podcasts, you heard the stories of Bill's adventures with his Vespa. Well, that lasted about a year and a half. And then he moved on to a new phase, and we formed a company. But even through forming a company, what have we found? If we're being truthful about it, we found that we continue to evolve, that we continue to pursue new interests, develop new projects. And I think regardless of what you're doing with your time, that is really going to turn out to be the case for a lot of people as people live longer and longer in better health.
Well, I think what happens is that, you go through this sort of phase of newfound freedom. And we use the word loosely, and I mean that. I think we use the word freedom loosely because I don't think we really appreciate what the word freedom means. We're not going to the office, etc. As I said, but we don't realize that this is the time when you can do what you want. As opposed to having to go to work and being under the direction of other people, etc., trying to get along with people that you maybe don't like, and so on and so forth. This is freedom in its truest, purest sense, and that freedom, it takes a lot of getting used to. You just don't realize how free you really are. Now, we're not going to talk about money and the ability to cope with expenses or that. That's a different discussion. We're talking about the psychological impact of the early part of your retirement, the first 1, 2, 3 years, as we said. That freedom is something that takes an awful lot of getting used to. You've never done it for the last 30, 40, 50 years, perhaps. So you've now got a different lifestyle. And I think people forget that it's a different lifestyle. Retirement is, retirement's one of the toughest jobs you'll ever have. I mean, it's as simple as that. It really is a tough job because you've got to think for yourself. You've got to act alone. Pretty much. You've got to do your own things. You've got to find things to do. You've got to find things to do with your time. And maybe you've got some financial issues as well, of course, but it's a whole new game that you're now playing. And guess what? It's going to be like that for the rest of your life.
Well, I think you raised an excellent point when you talk about freedom, because one of the things that causes the disillusionment when you are in retirement and you're not satisfied with your life is not realizing that the only person holding you back is you. When you had the traditional career, whatever that was, you had other things that limited your freedom. You had financial responsibilities, you had job responsibilities, you had scheduling problems, you had children and a family to support, and that put limitations on you. In retirement, when all of a sudden all of your time is your own, if you're not happy with your life, it's because you're limiting your own freedom and your own opportunities to express yourself, to explore, to grow.
Well, I mean, you and I have used the word reorientation many, many times, because I think that really is the correct word. You've got to reorient yourself. You've got to change. And the other phrase that we've used is finding yourself. You've got to find yourself. Now, I mean, that kind of sounds, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, but it's a tough job. Finding yourself, particularly if you've led that active life that you talked about, career or whatever it was, where there was a routine, there was a schedule, there were 5 days a week, then at the weekend you did this, etc., etc., etc. That was, I mean, it was a routine, and you had to stick to it because of the responsibilities you had, be it job or family or whatever it may be. But trying to find yourself in an open field, where there's nothing else in the field except you, trying to find yourself in the middle of that field, tough job.
Well, and conversely, supposing you retire and you do find yourself in the sense that you become a grandparent and you're actively involved in grandparenting, the daily life of the small child. Well, eventually that child is going to reach an age where they're more independent, where they have other interests, where they're going other places. All of a sudden, that disillusionment thing can well up inside you again, because your reason for being the grandchild's still there, but you're not needed in the way that you were. You're valued, you're loved, of course, but you're not needed all day long. And all of a sudden, the what shall I do with myself has reappeared.
Yeah, I think it's, there is a realization, and I don't want to be morose about this, but, there's a finite time frame, so shall we call it. Hopefully it's a long time, 20, 25 years, whatever it may be. And you begin to realize that by trying to find yourself, you start to think about, what should I do? What can I do? What will I do? And of course, the big thing there is to get up and go on with it.
Just get out there and do.
Well, yeah. just get out there and do it. And I think, the idea of looking forward to retirement, to say, I'm going to sit on the couch and, I'm going to watch movies all day, that doesn't last long. I mean, eventually you say, I just got to get up and go on with it. And then you ask the question, well, gee, what am I going to do? That's part of finding yourself. You find yourself by figuring out, what do I like, what I want to do, whether it's a hobby or whether it's a part-time job or volunteering or charity, whatever that may be. That's finding yourself. And once you find yourself in the sense of, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, all of a sudden that retirement thing becomes a little bit more enjoyable. I'm not saying it's not enjoyable, but I'm saying that in that first few months, year or two, whatever sort of thing, it can be slightly depressing, perhaps.
Well, I agree with you. So maybe the key to a thriving, long-lasting retirement is simply to go on a journey in which you are perpetually finding yourself, learning new things, and growing in all kinds of different directions.
Yeah, that's right. And, when you're talking about journey, you're talking about a psychological journey. I mean, you can call it travel if you wish, but it's a psychological journey. And you will find that you are on a psychological journey to find yourself, to realize what you like, what you don't like. You're going to be surprised. You're going to find things to do or thoughts to have that you never thought about before.
Well, if you're still watching, we must have said something helpful or insightful. So please subscribe to our channel and we'll chat with you again soon.